Joining us now on Book TV is Marji Ross, who is the publisher of Regnery. Marji Ross, first of all, who owns Regnery now?
Oh, thank you for asking that. We have a new owner. It's very exciting. We're now owned by Salem Communications. And as you may know, Salem is a very big and powerful media company, mostly in radio. So they syndicate some of the biggest conservative talk show hosts, including Michael Medved and Dennis Prager and Hugh Hewitt and Mike Gallagher and Bill Bennett. And they also own over 100 radio stations across the country. And of course, that's one of the key drivers for book sales, especially in the conservative market, is to get onto talk radio. So now we have this wonderful synergy. We're going to be working with all of our Salem family to try to get the message out about our books.
Has your job changed since the new ownership?
Well, it's become more busy and more exciting, but luckily, the nice thing for Regnery is that Salem doesn't own or didn't own any trade publishing operation at all. So this is new to them, and so they liked what they saw with Regnery and kept all of us on board to try to, augment what they're doing and build a new powerful arm within the Salem companies.
Well, we want to ask you about some of the spring titles that you
Wonderful.
have coming out. I want to start with David Archibald's. What's this book about?
Yes, The Twilight of Abundance. It's a fascinating book. It's a book about natural resources, it's a book about energy, but it's also a book about the haves and the have-nots. And I don't mean the individuals within the country, I mean countries and even continents that are haves and have-nots. And this is a very interesting sort of megatrends book about what happens as we are entering a period, a sort of geo period of scarcity. Scarcer resources, harsher climate, energy battles, and what that means for various countries and various continents. And his warning is that America really needs to rethink our whole energy policy and natural resource policy and even our food strategy as we enter this new period, because while we are certainly the biggest of the first world countries, there's actually a risk that we could become a third world country if we don't marshal our resources in a more strategic way.
From your description, that doesn't sound like what we'd expect from a conservative author.
It's very interesting. It is a little bit off the beaten track for us, but it's still very conservative fundamentally in that it advocates a smaller government, less regulation, and more private enterprise, more innovation, and more free market solutions to try that as the best way to navigate the new realities.
Is this book out on the market now?
This book has just come out, and we are selling it, I think, starting on Monday.
Another spring title, Hunting the President.
Yes, this is really a fascinating book. This is by Mel Ayton, who's an expert, believe it or not, in assassinations. And he's written quite a great deal about the JFK assassination. But in covering that and researching that, he discovered that there have been dozens of attempts on presidents, that most of which have gone unreported or uncovered or even hushed up to not frighten people because of the sinister nature of these. So we are timing this to come out in April, when a lot of people, of course, talk about the Lincoln assassination. But it's really a fascinating look at threats and plots and assassination attempts on presidents in the 20th century, most of which you've never heard of, and how they were averted and how the Secret Service and other agencies helped keep the president safe.
The people have spoken.
People have spoken, and they are wrong. That's what David Harsanyi says. And this is, again, a very interesting, thoughtful, irreverent, and provocative book about the challenges of a pure democracy. And what David argues is that we're not a pure democracy. We never were a democracy. We were a democratic republic. And in fact, as we go, as people who don't understand that or don't even like the ideas of a republic, go further and further down a pure democracy road, all kinds of unintended bad consequences occur. And all you have to do is look at some of the countries in the Middle East where we sort of exported a pure democracy, or the idea of a pure democracy. Well, you don't always elect the people that you want, or even the people who have the best interests of the populace at heart. And his argument is we have to return to the Constitution. We have to return to a democratic republic, which really puts more of a responsibility on individuals to be educated voters, to be engaged voters, to be involved in their communities, because that's what the Founding Fathers had in mind.
Marji Ross, we're here at the Conservative Political Action Conference. A lot of potential GOP president nominees are here speaking. Will probably be coming out with books as well. Do those sell well?
Sometimes they do, most of the time they don't. And we have all kinds of theories about why books by sitting politicians can be very difficult to sell, including the fact that I think most of the general population, and probably me included, think that politicians have an agenda when they get in front of a microphone, and it's not necessarily something that's all that interesting to read about in a book. And honestly, I can turn on TV, I can turn on C-SPAN any day of the week and hear what all the politicians have to say for free. I don't need to buy a book about it. So that makes it particularly challenging to publish books with politicians, and every once in a while you have that really clear message and that really engaging author that is the exception to the rule.
Well, one of the books you're publishing this spring or this year is by Rick Santorum,
right?
Potential presidential candidate.
He is. And of course he was a presidential contender last time around, and we felt, and a lot of people I hope felt the same way, that he had a message and was talking to a constituency that was really in many ways overlooked by some of the mainstream politicians, by both parties. And he became sort of the spokesperson for the working class, hard-working fabric of the community, voter, an American, and maybe not so much a voter anymore, somebody who feels ignored and probably stayed home in the 2012 election. These are the folks who are the high school basketball coach and the Boy Scout troop leader and the mom who organizes the charity auction for the church, the sort of fabric of our communities, but they're not the stars. They're not the high-flying entrepreneurs who make millions by starting a high-tech company and selling it to one of the big folks in Seattle or San Francisco. And I think his message was that the folks in our communities are the backbone of our communities and the backbone of our country, and both parties to a certain extent have forgotten about them. They don't represent them, and they don't talk to them, they don't engage with them, and yet their values are very conservative, are fundamentally conservative, and frankly it's an opportunity for the GOP. That's what the book is about.
Dinesh DSouza.
Yeah.
Are his legal troubles, do they conflict at all with the book publishing?
Well, it's funny you say that, because he just found out, as you may know, that he's going to trial. And I can't comment much on the legal issue, but it certainly seems to me, this is my opinion, that it's a case of targeting and a harassment of someone who was very publicly against this administration. And I think he's going to possibly be talking about that a little bit in the book when it comes out. It's now scheduled for a pub date at the 1st of June, and the book is called America. Something like, what would we have done without her? And the point is, America has stood for liberty and freedom and opportunity as a sort of shining city on the hill for centuries, and perhaps it no longer is able to stand for what it has always stood for.